What's the hardest thing for you to comprehend about the American culture? How casual debt is. How easy it is to take loans and credit cards out in other people's names without their knowledge. That's why I recommend Bad Credit, the new awesome product that makes your information useless to everyone, including you. I wouldn't call it new. Been using this plan going on 40 years now. Having 2 weeks vacation, or no PTO for most. In my current country you have to take 2 weeks of mandatory leave in a row. Including public holidays I get about 7 weeks vacation a year. Edit. This got way more attention than I expected. Reading through everyone's comments it seems there is a huge gap between those with no to little PTO and those that get a decent amount. All of this is from the goodwill of the companies you work for, and not any federally mandated leave. Where? I think he's referring to Denmark. In Denmark, we have 5 weeks of vacation plus 11 holidays, so that ends up at around 7 weeks in total. We don't have mandatory vacation from the government level, but your employer can force you to take all 5 weeks if they want to. If you can't find time to take your vacation, you can have a max of 4 weeks transferred to the next year. The biggest challenge for me was sales tax. Unlike in some other countries, sales tax is not included in the listed price of goods and services in the US. Additionally, the sales tax can vary from state to state anywhere from 0% to over 10%. You don't hear about this angle much, but it's kind of a political and cultural issue. Opponents of taxes want them very visible to the person paying them. If they're put into the prices, you're not thinking about them, annoyed by them. This blew my mind when I went to France for vacation. As an American, we are conditioned to do quick mental math to pay our bills. If it's $10, I need to at least have 11 for tax, then I'll probably get back some change. Restaurants are worst, cause then you have to factor in tip. In France my bill came to 49 even. I was doing some quick math in my head and waited for the receipt to calculate the bill. When the waitress handed back my card she told me, "Have a great day," and I just sat there wondering if I could leave. There wasn't a little section for tips, so it confused me. Super rich televangelists like this Kenneth Copeland I learned about on Reddit. I'm American and trust me, most of us are aware that these dudes are scumbags. I grew up with parents who followed and sent money to him and the likes of him. They teach that if you give your money to the church, and to them, God will bless you with prosperity and you'll be rich. 43 years later, my dad is still poor. Still gives 10% of his money. My mom was listening to Kenneth and Gloria Copeland's healing teaching recordings as she died from cancer. Canadian here on spring break in Florida. I can't get over the baseline. I don't know how to say it, baseline education level. There are smart people, but there are also completely uneducated people. Like, the divide is massive. Entering America from Canada is strange. Immediately I see billboards about abortion and religion law. TBF, I thought it was weird as hell that the Canadian side of Niagara Falls feels like a Vegas knockoff and the US side feels like an actual natural park. The park systems in the US are by far the best parts of our governments. Parentheses, because I believe Niagara is a state park in the US. School mascots. Where I live, we just have teams and just play matches against people. In America, it's all like, "Go Easttown Eagles. OOGACHACKA. And there would be some person in a cheapo Eagle suit spinning a basketball on his fingers or something. You would have a full dramatic cheerleader dance-off before your match. We just shake hands and stare at each other. Sometimes mascots aren't even animals. My school's was a comet. Comet Man was terrifying. Oh my god, I finally get to say this to someone. Our high school mascot was the Vanguard missile. Entrée means main course. In the 19th century, when French terms entered the U.S., the word entrée meant the meal between fish and roast. This usually composed of a lighter meat like lobster or chicken. When America entered the 20th century, they cut out the heartier meals like roast and made lighter meats the focus of the meal. The word entrée carried on to mean the focus of a meal to this day. In Europe, entrée kept its origin of being the beginning of the real meal. America kept the word's place in a meal, while Europe kept the word's actual French meaning. That has always bothered me, but now I'll feel better about it. Americans love French fries, cheese, and gravy, but poutine never took off south of the border. Always found that odd. Well, yeah, we have chili cheese fries. I was going to point this out, our chili cheese tots. Zero tolerance rule. Who came up with that shit? The victim is the one who is fucked. Either he gets bullied or he gets a penalty for defending himself. That's why if someone attacks you at school, you fight back as hard as possible. If you were getting punished anyway, you might as well earn it. Exactly. You're getting punished either way. Might as well make sure you won't get picked on again. A lot of people follow and worship politicians like they're gods, flags and all that shit. In the UK it's universally acknowledged that we hate all politicians pretty much equally. I think this really started to change around the time reality TV became a thing. Now our entire political process is reality TV. I say this as someone old enough to remember when pretty much every person in Washington was a serious person. Having to tip almost everywhere. It definitely makes sense at some places, but feel like we have to tip at the most random of places these days. It's so fucking weird. I was in a souvenir shop the other day where no real service was given. It wasn't even a restaurant. I was literally buying some scented candle or some shit and sure enough, the lady flipped the screen around for me to sign and there was an automatic 25% tip added. I had to deselect it to move forward and complete the transaction. We can use social pressure to earn more money is annoying, but it's hardly without precedent. Always deselect. I get so mad walking into places and seeing that the register at the counter is a screen that will most definitely prompt me to tip for services I know aren't going to be provided. I used to tip $1 out of embarrassment and being put on the spot every time at these places. By now I'm desensitized and will happily remove all tips and give my signature for the price of whatever I'm purchasing while smiling. It's predatory, and as someone who is extremely well-traveled and has been to several countries where tipping is considered inappropriate, I'm altogether done with America's tipping culture. I don't go over 20%, and I only give 20% if I'm actually sitting at a table and being waited on, or if I'm at a bar and the bartender is super amicable. I speak as a Latin American. Just setting that down on the table, I don't get why people think that using something from my culture or showing interest of Latin culture is culture appropriation. I've spoken to a lot of people in my culture about this thing and we all think it's alright. P.S. If you think like this, I would like to talk about it, and understand where it comes from. Not mad, I just simply don't understand it. I recall some time ago some ladies from Oregon went to Mexico and learned how to make tacos from this Mexican grandmother. They took the knowledge she taught them and opened a restaurant in Oregon, and people were up in arms about cultural appropriation, and I could never quite square that. They act like they went there, broke into her house, stole the recipe and started selling them down the street. I think people get cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation confused way too often. Your healthcare system, so complicated and expensive. And people going bankrupt because they get sick. What bullshittery is this? I have so many bills right now and they are all medical. Was diagnosed recently with early onset dementia and can't afford to see the doctor until I can afford it. In the meantime, I can't work or barely drive. What am I supposed to do? Hearing the bald eagle screech every time I unwrap a slice of American cheese. American here, fun fact. That stereotypical screech you commonly hear associated with the bald eagle is actually a red-tailed hawk. Bald eagles do not make that sound. They make more of a weird, way less cool, chirping sound. I was too old when I learned this for the first time. Lots of bald eagles in the far north of Canada. The first time I heard that in an American movie, I looked at my dad and said, "That doesn't sound like an eagle." And he just laughed. I was maybe 10. It reminded me of when I was watching the Polar Express, and they ran into caribou that, for some reason, screamed like elk. Or when movies put crow calls in for a raven. Why they don't include tax in the total price of something? Just include it and make life easier. I don't want to have to do maths every time I go there and buy something. Make life easier as a general rule in America. The choice between make life easier or whatever businesses want, our government is likely to choose the latter. You are allowed to drive a car at 16, own guns and sign up for the military at 18. But alcohol, behold the devil's liquid, is only for 21 plus. Actually, you can join the military at 17. You can enter the delayed entry program at 16 and go to basic at 17. I turned 18 during BMT. There's a political history behind the drinking age. It used to be 18 not all that long ago. It used to be up to the states, and technically still is. Some states had a drinking age of 18, some 21, some did something different. Virginia had an age of 19 to buy beer and wine but 21 for everything else. Then the federal government made federal highway funding contingent on raising the drinking age to 21. So since the early 1980s every state caved to that financial pressure. Lobbying. Legal bribery, what the hell? Also, why do you have to do your taxes? If the government, in the end, knows if what you paid was what you actually owed, why not just tell you? Funnily enough, both your points are related. There are many things that could be done to make filing taxes much easier, but big companies like H&R Block who make their money from doing people's taxes for them have lobbied the government for decades to keep it so complex. Intuit is the other asshole in that room. Private health insurance that is tied to your employment. And sucks. And yet 50% of the population vehemently defend. It's so stupid. Oh yes, I'll happily pay $200 plus of my paycheck for private insurance that covers nothing and I can't use. Wait, they'll raise our taxes or allocate different uses in my current tax expenditures? I'll pay $30 more in taxes for healthcare? What kind of communism is this bullshit? I hate it. I already pay damn close to $100 a month in Medicare I can't even use. But people call it heresy to have some kind of government healthcare system for everyone. I'm no expert, but I almost guarantee that an option for government healthcare taken out in taxes each paycheck will be substantially less than private insurance. And hell, just make it an option. If you want to opt out and keep private, cool. Now private is competing with cheap government healthcare. It makes me so damn mad LMAO.